Good evening and welcome to Wigan's virtual council meeting. My name is Councillor Steve Dauber and I am the Mayor of Wigan. For members' information, this meeting is being live streamed, so please mute your microphone and turn off your video when not speaking to minimise the background noise and any distractions. Should you wish to speak on an item, then please indicate this by using the chat facility and typing speak RS, and then wait until I invite you to speak. At that point, unmute your microphone and put your video on. Can I emphasise that the chat facility must not be used for private conversations between councillors and officers, and I will not take any inappropriate comments from the chat facility this evening, so please only use speak RS and then I'll bring you in at the relevant point. You can of course use the chat function to signify that you are against an item which is on the agenda by typing against or A. I will also request the officers who are administering the meeting to mute any member who may disregard the rules if I feel that this is necessary, and any unnecessary interruptions will not be tolerated. Those same officers may use the chat facility to communicate with me regarding the workings of the meeting. Please state your name for the audience before you speak unless I have just mentioned your name. You have been sent a separate etiquette sheet to help with the smooth running of this meeting. Could we please keep to that process? Should I lose a Wi-Fi signal for any reason, then may I suggest that the Deputy Mayor continues to take the item until I am reconnected. If any other members lose connection, then members should try to re-establish their connections, but we need to ensure that the meeting continues without delay. I also need to stress the correct use of the following rules. Rule 11.12, points of order. A member may at any time raise a point of order relating only to an alleged breach of these council rules of procedure or the law. The member must indicate the rule or law and the way in which he or she considers it has been breached. As Mayor, I will hear the member immediately and my ruling on the matter will be final. Rule 11.13, a personal explanation. A member may at any time request myself as the Mayor to allow them to make a personal explanation relating only to some material part of an earlier speech by that member which may appear to have been misunderstood in the present debate. My ruling on the admissibility of a personal explanation will be final. We now have a pre-recorded prayer which has been prepared for the council meeting by Reverend Will Gibbons from Wigan Parish Church.
So let's pray. Lord God, we give thanks for the work of Wigan Council, and we ask that you would use our councillors to bring peace, prosperity, righteousness and hope for the borough of Wigan. Bless our local council, we pray, with good relationships, strong accountability, sound decisions, effective budgeting and servant hearts for the good of our community and the sake of those on its margins. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Can I remind members of the need to respect each other, and I will continue to chair these meetings fairly and to show impartiality. Let's hope that we don't have another lightning strike this evening like we had at the last meeting, and we had to start again. The rules of conduct for the meeting have been circulated by email to all members, and a copy are in your ModGov app library section. Can I ask the Chief Executive, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have apologies of absence this evening from Councillor Grundy. No further apologies, but if there are any, please could members put it in the chat function. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of August 2020. I will move the acceptance of these as a correct record, but remind members that the AGM will now be held next May 2021. Can I ask the leader to second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Can I put the minutes to the vote? All those against the approval of the minutes, please show in the chat facility. No one has voted against, so those minutes have been accepted. Mayor's announcements. I am pleased to report that the following people with connection to the Wigan Borough have been honoured in the Queen's Birthday Honours List. Mr Frank Costello has been awarded an MBE for services to Wigan and Lee College, and Frank was also a senior officer at the council for many years. Gary Frith has been awarded the MBE for services to prison staff, their families and prisoners during COVID-19. Michelle E. Nell has been awarded the MBE for services to the community and frontline workers in Wigan during COVID-19. Ian Brown has been awarded the BEM for voluntary service to the Church Lads and Church Girls Brigade in Standish. Constable John Williams has been awarded the BEM for services to policing and charity. And finally, Christopher Hindley has been awarded the OBE for services to young people across the North West. May I, on behalf of the Council, congratulate them on receiving these prestigious awards. Wigan Council winner of the Current Health Integration for the Deal for Healthier Wigan experience in this year's MJ Awards. Can I also congratulate the team on winning this MJ Award? It is a great achievement to receive national recognition as the best in the country for health integration work. Well done to you all. Wigan's sporting successes. Congratulations also go to Harry Coppell, who set a new British record in the pole vault by clearing 5.85 metres in the Muller British Championships. Also to Emily Borthwick, who won the bronze in the high jump, and Keely Hodgkinson, who is the women's champion at the 800 metres. Once again, well done to you all. Special honour for head teacher Catherine Taylor. May I congratulate Catherine Taylor, the executive head teacher of 2 Wigan special needs schools, Oakfield and Langate, for receiving this rare national honour for outstanding commitment to changing the lives of the children that she has worked with every day. She has 37 years service in this field. Catherine is in the running for the Gold Award and we wish her well. Remembrance Sunday arrangements. It is with sadness that I have to remind members that because of the current COVID-19 climate that we find ourselves in, that arrangements for this year's Remembrance Sunday has had to be scaled down. The service is only taking place at Wigan and Lee parish churches. It is important that we follow government guidelines at this difficult time and that as councillors that we get the right message out to the public to avoid social gatherings on the 8th and the 11th of November this year. Wreaths can still be laid in the respective areas on Sunday, but it is important to recognise social distancing and to reduce the risks associated with the normal gatherings that normally take place in each area. For those of you who are unable to attend the service on the day, then the services at Wigan and Lee parish churches will be live streamed. The council is also encouraging residents to put a poppy in the window as a mark of respect. And I thank you all for your support during this difficult time. Declarations of interest. The monitoring officer has provided advice to all members and relevant guidance has been issued. Members are asked to consider relevant interests for the purpose of this meeting, and if there are any interests, members must leave the meeting, if necessary, during the relevant item and rejoin the item after it's been considered. Please email any declarations to the Democratic Services Manager so that the minutes can be updated accordingly. We now have updates from Cabinet portfolio holders. I invite the portfolio holder for communities, public relations, corporate land, community assets and culture, Councillor Reader, to speak about the SDF hubs. Councillor Reader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm going to make a few important statements tonight, Mr. Mayor, and ask for some agreement on some serious issues. But firstly, Mr. Mayor, can I actually place on record our thanks to the Leader of the Council on the negotiations he's been involved with over the last, what seems like an eternity for himself, in virtual meetings with GM and the government on trying to get settlement for our local businesses and our communities and low paid in our communities. I'm sure we would all wish that we could get a good settlement there because it's everything we're working towards. So good luck, David. I know the negotiations go on, but you've got all our support in this chamber, I'm sure, and continue that good work. So thank you. Mr. Mayor, I would like to thank all members for their work over the communities in the last 6 months, working closer with the SDF hubs. COVID has changed our lives forever in different ways, and we've spoke about the second wave over the last few months, and now it's here in full force. We all need to work together to minimise the impact on our residents. This time would be different than the first phase, because supermarkets are geared up for online shopping more, chemists are doing more pick-up and drop-offs, but we'll need to pick up the ones that can't access these services and who are self-isolating. So there'll be a big call up on us to help our residents in this area. And I think one of the areas, and I'm sure Councillor Halliwell may touch on this later, will be residents who come out of furlough and find themselves out of work. So I think they'll not be familiar with the benefit system, and we need to help them in that cause. In the first wave, we had a lot of redeployed staff working in our hubs. This will change this time, and I'm sure the deputy leader is going to touch on this, because we'll have a lot of our staff working in the care sector, and they'll have to be really flexible in that arena. So we won't have the people in the hubs. So more than ever, we need our community leaders, that is yourselves, the members of this council, and volunteers to get involved with that. So if you know anybody who can volunteer, get them to contact the teams. So the key message is, if you've got an issue or a question, please go through your SDF manager in your area. I will email out all the contact details later and relate all this information that I'm giving you today. Our staff are under great pressure. Over the last 6 months, they have continued to give us first-class service on the front line for all our residents, and we all need to support them as community leaders more than ever before, because they're tired and they're running on empty, but they're still delivering that service for us. So can I really put a plea out there to all members to support our staff? We've got the best staff in the country, and they've really pulled everything out for us this time, and it's the Wigan way, and it's all pulling together, and make sure we do that. Finally, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make a few comments about the RIC system. You've all seen the correspondence from the leader about prioritisation of issues, and I just want to kind of emphasise that lots of departments are facing pressures, so we need your cooperation into prioritising jobs. You can still put stuff on the RIC system, but we'll be triaging them, and they won't get done as quickly as they used to get done. So please refrain from contacting chief officers in departments and contacting everybody into those emails, because it doesn't help. If you've got any issues like safeguarding or emergency issues, contact through to your SDF managers again, or through to the outlines, which I will supply. But please, can you really support this in a way? I think it's really important. I will also be writing to the MP's offices who actually use this service as well. And I think what the MP's offices have got to realise, that casework is not pressing a button to send it to the council. Casework is actually doing work on the ground yourself, and we really need the support of the MPs to take this on board as well and do that. If there is any issues or questions relating to your role, you can contact any cabinet member and they will help you to assist with that. But your SDF manager is your key to all the things that we do here. I will be putting all this in an email for clarification, but just to finish on a few key messages, I think we need to promote people in our communities to buy local to cover our well building project. Work together, be kind, and more important than ever before is support our staff, because without them we have nothing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Reeder. I now invite the portfolio holder for Housing and Welfare, Councillor Halliwell, to speak about housing, homeless and welfare. Councillor Halliwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the Council, prior to COVID, we were experiencing a significant and unprecedented demand for council housing across the borough and affordable homes due to the impact of austerity, changes to the welfare system and a growth in insecure employment not least on a broken housing market. COVID-19 has not made the situation any better. Indeed, the situation has deteriorated significantly. Wigan Council currently have over 9,000 people on the housing register, compared to 5,662 in 2018, an increase of 60%. We have 523 people with 500 plus points in urgent need of accommodation, an increase of approximately 187% since 2018. We received on average 109 bids per property in 2020 compared to 50 in 2018, an increase of approximately 118%.
Terry, you've turned your mic off.
Sorry. Apologies, Mr. Mayor. Wigan Council currently have over 9,000 people on the housing register compared to 5,662 in 2018, an increase of 60%. We have 523 people with 500 plus points in urgent need of accommodation, an increase of approximately 187% since 2018. We received an average 109 bids per property in 2020 compared to 50 in 2018, an increase of 118%, and 626 desperate residents made homeless applications between the 23rd of March and the 7th of June 2020. It's not a good picture, members, and COVID won't help. So to mitigate some of these excesses of the current situation, we will continue to increase our council stock in the sheltered accommodation and general housing needs sector, with new developments to start in the new year. We'll be working with registered social landlords to increase supply, establish an ethical lettings agency, and work with private rented sectors to increase affordable homes and quality homes across the borough to try and meet an unprecedented demand. Indeed, helping to meet this demand will be our housing-led regeneration on 5 sites: the Worsley Mains Estate, supported homes in Hindley and Goulburn, and the extra care scheme scheduled for Sandalwood Drive in Beach Hill and Wharfdale in Lee, providing 107 extra care apartments and communal spaces and gardens with 19 bungalows for older and disabled residents. All of these have the added benefit of providing local apprentices and increasing the revenue for local businesses involved in the local supply chain. During this year, our responsive repair team has seen some significant changes. We welcomed in our new in-house repair service, which promotes a more consistent service for all our tenants across the borough, and we've introduced a number of initiatives, one of which is a new 24/7 online repair service, allowing tenants to select their own appointment for repairs at any time of day. During COVID, we have continued to carry out urgent repairs, whilst some of our staff supported other teams, such as children's services, the recycling centres, and our neighbourhood hubs. Indeed, a key initiative was developed in digital home inspections, and this helped to increase efficiency and provide a more flexible service for those who wanted to use it. We will now explore and examine ways to expand on this, given the increase in COVID restrictions. The Tenant's annual report has been released, and it makes some good reading, but there is still room for improvement, and we will be focusing very hard on these to ensure our offer to our customers improves, with the aim of providing a quality home for all our tenants. Some of the key achievements include 6,204 properties received planned works. Of these, 98.6 were completed right first time, and 99.6 of our tenants were satisfied with the planned works. And in addition to this, we completed over 75,000 repairs. Members, I'll just turn to homelessness. The council, as some of you will be aware, have been successful with local government bids for those in need of temporary accommodation and additional support. With 2 hubs and the GM MERS bid every night, we witnessed a fall in rush sleeping, and I can announce that we concurrently are working up proposals to provide an extra 8 beds. However, COVID has meant we have had to relocate many from the hubs to maintain social distancing, but they are still receiving the support to help them move forward with their lives. Our welfare service and our third sector partners have continued to help those who find themselves in need, providing food parcels,
Halliwell,
debt
I'll
advice.
interrupt you there. I'm afraid you've run out of time. I did give you extra because you lost your mark early on, but unfortunately, it's your time. Thank you. I'd now like to invite the lead member for Armed Forces, Councillor Clive Morgan, to update the Council on the Gold Employer Award given by the Ministry of Defence for its commitment to supporting the Armed Forces community. Councillor Morgan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully a little bit of good news in these troubled times. Yeah, it's a great pleasure, Mr. Mayor. I can now confirm that Wigan Council have been awarded the Gold Award for 2020 from the Ministry of Defence. But before I comment on this award, Mr. Mayor, I would like to say why I think all awards are important to the Council. It gives the organisation department something to aspire to. But more importantly, it means as a council we are being scrutinised not only by the MOD but other organisations. And I can assure you, Mr. Mayor, the MOD does not present this award lightly. I am proud to say that Wigan Council are one of only 3 organisations in the whole of the North West who have achieved gold standard in 2020. I would now like to read part of the accompanying letter to the Council's Strategic Manager, Major John Harker, MBE, who received this from Major General Simon Brooks Ward, OBE, and I quote, "As chair of this year's selection panel, I can tell you that the standard of nominations for gold was extremely high and made the task of choosing the winners even tougher than in previous years. To reach gold status in the face of such stiff competition should be regarded as a significant achievement, and you and your organisation can be justly proud to have done so. The enclosed certificate reflects a very impressive and very welcome level of support for the Defence People agenda, and I hope you will continue to work with us for the benefit of our serving regular and reserve personnel veterans." And that was from General Simon Brooks Ward, OBE, Mr. Mayor. Now, I would like to give high praise to everyone in the team who was involved in bringing this award to the Council, in particular to our Strategic Manager, John Harker, who led on these 3 awards. As we all know, the Armed Forces HQ was officially opened in November of 2018. And this award was one of our targets. And to achieve gold in less than 2 years is remarkable. And as a council, we should be extremely proud of this achievement. Now, the award, Mr. Mayor, covers a wide criteria at 3 levels. I will cover some of the requirements and achievements of the ongoing work that is being done, which has been required to achieve this award. Now, we have to sign the Armed Forces Covenant, the support for the employee reserves within the council and support given to them to enable mobilisation. We have to engage with the Career Transition Partnership, and we have to have various policies to demonstrate forces-friendly selection and process on recruitment. Now, the Armed Forces HQ has been fully operational for 2 years and is going from strength to strength, supporting our veterans and their families. And I am convinced, Mr. Mayor, more awards will be forthcoming in the future. And finally, Mr. Mayor, I would like to give great credit to the leader and deputy leader for their foresight in 2018. Their ambition and support provided a Council Armed Forces team and excellent facilities, which in my opinion has enabled us to set up in our borough the most fit for purpose advice centre in the country for armed forces and veterans and their families. I'd like to thank you for letting me speak, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that, Councillor Morgan. I will now invite the portfolio holder for adult social care, Councillor Cunliffe, to speak on the impact of COVID-19 on adult social care. Councillor Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just think it's important for me to speak about the impact that the pandemic has had on our most vulnerable in the community. Adult social care has some of our most vulnerable people who it provides services for, and COVID-19 has had a real impact on those people. It's had an impact on people who don't require services, and I'm sure many people in the borough have been badly impacted in terms of mental health and issues relating to the impact of the pandemic. So during the first wave, I must give our staff praise for the way in which they dealt with the first wave of the crisis. Clearly, we were in a difficult situation. Adrenaline was pumping. People were volunteering and being redeployed, and it had a significant impact on the services that we could provide and maintain and do as best we could for those people. Of course, during the first wave, the government protected the NHS. But actually, what they did at the time was fail to see that health and social care is a whole system. And so the impact of protecting the NHS, emptying beds in the hospital to provide capacity, led to a situation where the National Audit Office estimated that 25,000 people in this country were discharged into care homes with COVID-19 positive. And that is into an environment where the most susceptible group of people, older people, were there. And we saw significant problems within our care homes, as everybody did nationally. We developed alternative services. We met up with people. The Mercure came on stream to deal with homelessness and issues around that. And teams were put into care homes. We got volunteers from our staff to go and work in those care homes that were particularly badly affected, to such an extent that many care home providers have actually mentioned Wigan as one of the only authorities and one of the most respondent authorities that helped them out during this process. And recently I've been involved in a Northwest Social Care Commission, which is looking at the whole of the Northwest and getting experiences of people who use adult social care during this crisis. So we've interviewed and spoken to and taken evidence from providers, from carers, from older people, and from people with a learning disability and mental health issues. One thing that has made clear to me is that Wigan actually performed and did more for people with adult social care needs than many other councils across the Northwest. Part of the role of the Commission is to identify good practice and also to see what lessons we can learn for future about changing the way we do services and in the event of a further thing. We're now moving into the second wave of COVID, and the issues and the problems are different. We've had staff working for over 6 months at full pressure, and our staff are exhausted. That adrenaline and enthusiasm, even though they've still got it, is wearing a bit thin. But the real issue this time is the number of staff and the workforce capacity. We have staff who are testing positive. We have staff who are having to self-isolate, and we are having staff who are having to stay home because of childcare commitments. That is creating real pressure on the adult care services. It's creating pressure on reablement. It's creating pressure on the integrated discharge team. It's creating pressure on home care, and it's creating pressure on care homes. And in the way that it's affecting the number of staff, we're having to respond in a different way and get volunteers. But whereas we had volunteers last time who were being redeployed for a period of a couple of months, What we've now got is having to respond to really urgent problems immediately. And as an example, the community equipment store that bring out aids and adaptations to people who need that in order to live their lives fully. For this weekend, 4 drivers from that tested COVID positive. That decimated the system of getting out.
Can I interrupt you there? I'm sorry, you've run out of time.
Well, I'm just saying that things are really critical in social care.
Councillor.
And discharging, I know I am, and discharging people from hospital is a big problem.
On this microphone,
thank you.
Please. Have to be very strict on the timing, I'm afraid. Can I now ask the leader to sum up on the areas within his portfolio? Leader.
Can I first say, Mr. Mayor, you perhaps need a shepherd's crook. You remember the talent show when people had so long and they got taken off by a shepherd's crook? So you perhaps need one of those. Can I just say, and a big thank you to all portfolio holders and lead members who've spoken tonight. And I think what does show through more and more is the effort and dedication that has gone in by our staff across this council. It's been absolutely superb, and we've been saying it now for a number of months. The response that we've seen since the pandemic started, the service that's been delivered have not diminished. They have been, in fact, they've gone from strength to strength, and a lot of these areas are winning awards. I'm extremely proud of the Armed Forces one. That is something that when we set out in 2018, we made it a priority in terms of the 22,000 ex-veterans who live in this borough, and to provide a service that is fit for heroes has got to be maintained and has got to be supported. And what I would like to say is that we need to bear that in mind in terms of the service delivery we're now seeing, because the staff have been and gone above anything that we've ever asked them before, and we're now in that second phase. So I think it's more important than ever, as we as members, and many members have gone out and helped in the SDFs and various activities that have gone on each and every ward across the political divide, and it's something that we should really be saying we're proud of. So can I just ask you to support our staff, give them the recognition that they deserve, and give them a bit of patience at time when you're speaking or trying to contact them, because they're in a very, very busy position. And can I just mention, Mr. Mayor, the amount of people from the borough who've received awards in the honours list? Absolutely brilliant. One thing that was wrong, Frank Costello wasn't just a senior officer, he was actually the Deputy Chief Executive. And Frank has been a strong supporter of this council, even though he does support St Helens. I'll not hold that against him. But certainly the award that Frank received is much deserved. So therefore, Mr. Mayor, you don't need to switch my mic off. You don't need the shepherd's crook. You don't need Graham Norton's red chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm happy now to move on. Thank you. And you're muted, Mr. Mayor, unless they've switched your mic off.
Thank you for that, Leader. In moving the following reports, I will assume that all seconders will reserve the right to speak at the end of the other speakers. Now moving on to constitutional issues, dates and times of meetings. We have a report on pages 21 to 28 of the agenda, which asks the council to formally accept the timetable of meetings for 2021-22. I invite the leader to move the timetable of meetings as set out on page 27 of the council agenda.
Pleasure to move, Mr. Mayor.
Is the recommendation seconded?
Like to second, Mr. Mayor.
Do any other members wish to contribute on this? I don't have anyone. Can I put this straight to the vote? Are there any objections? Can all those against the approval of the report please show in the chat facility, please? Sorry, I've got Councillor Brealey who wishes to speak on this. Councillor Brealey.
Am I on? Am I on, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor?
Brealey?
Am I on?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak on this item. Being subjected to all the sanctions and the extension of
Councillor,
what?
we're on the just meetings, timetable of meetings.
Yeah, no, this is what I'm saying. Why can I not be involved in meetings? You know, the sanctions placed on me went in May 2020. Why am I not allowed to go on a committee?
Well, that's separate from this timetable of meetings, Councillor. You should have to take that up at another time. It's not relevant to this item. We're just deciding the timetable of meetings, not who attends them.
Yeah, but I'd like to ask a question. I mean, it's a simple question. You know, I'd like one audit.
Well, the question, well, what question do you have on the timetable of the meetings?
Well, the timetable of the meetings is not allowing me to get on them.
No, that's a different matter, Councillor. I'm sorry, you'll have to ask a relevant question, or we're going to have to move on to the vote.
Well, I can see by the deputy monitoring officer wants to speak. So, you know, I mean, let's that's another question. Why is the monitoring officer not here?
Councillor, are we discussing the timetable of the meetings or not? Because you seem to be moving off the point.
Well, you can't ask a question when you're not allowed to be on a committee.
Councillor, we're talking about timetable of meetings. Can I just ask you not to speak for the moment, and we'll ask the solicitor some legal advice. Janet Davis, please.
Firstly, thank you, Mayor. The actual sanctions haven't run out yet. They last for the term of office. The election that was due this year has been postponed.
Can I just interrupt you there, Miss Davis? We're not discussing sanctions. We're discussing the timetable of meetings.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mayor. So
okay, can I ask you to mute the microphone, please? I'm not even getting into this discussion. Has anybody any questions on the timetables of these meetings? Councillor Maiden.
It's okay, Mr. Mayor. I got my answer from that last answer. Thank you anyway.
All right, thank you. Are there any further questions? Deputy Leader, do you want to say anything on this matter?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Leader, do you wish to say anything on this matter?
No, Mr. Mayor.
I will now put it to the vote. All those against the approval of the report, please show in the chat facility, please. There is no one against, so that has been passed. Local authority governors. The council is requested to approve the nominations for the appointment and reappointment of school governors as set out on pages 29 and 34 of the council agenda. Are the nominations moved?
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Are the nominations seconded?
Beg to second, Mr. Mayor.
Do any other members wish to contribute? No? Do you wish to sum up? No? Can I put this straight to the vote? All those against the approval of the report, please show in the chat facility. No one is against that, and so the result is that's accepted. Policy and budget framework items. Annual report from the Chair of the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee. At pages 35 to 48, we have a report that updates members on the work of the committee. The report was considered by the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee and the Cabinet at their recent meetings. I invite Councillor Rigby to move the recommendation. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move this report. Can I just remind members that the purpose of this annual report is to highlight the work of Audit and Governance and Standards Committee and how the committee has contributed to the council's overall governance. The standards element of the committee work is covered in another report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Is this recommendation seconded?
Pleased to second, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Do any other members wish to contribute? I have Councillor Jones who wishes to speak.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. I'm just re-looking and I might have picked up the wrong item. I'm on the minutes on page 23 and 24, if that's correct. It's the report which mentions about the strategic lawyer about the standards hearings. Do you know if I'm on the right page there?
We've actually moved on to, we're on page 35 to 48 on audit, Councillor.
On audit, will be audit, won't it? It's the same report though, isn't it? The same minutes. It's on the audit and standards, isn't it? What I want to speak about, Mr. Mayor, is two things. One of them in the minutes mentions the independent person has a 4-year term. I think that needs to be re-looked at.
Can I just interrupt you there, Councillor? This report concerns audit only. The actually standards that will be covered in another report.
Well, I'm reading the minutes off the link. What we're now speaking about. I'm literally looking at the minutes now, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, but
I'm quoting chapter and verse what it says on the link on the background. So if that's not allowed, what is allowed?
What is it you wish to say, Councillor Jones?
I want to speak about the 4-year term, what the strategic lawyer mentions of the independent person. The problem I have, if you have a same individual, rightly or wrongly, getting complaints, and we keep having the same independent person in doing the investigation into them, I think that should be changed because they've got a pre-perception of that person each time. And the other mention is about the administrative measures. Now, the strategic lawyer says that they can do measures again, and these are checked by council officers. Well, if that's the case, every time a council is accused of something, the council officer said it's not a sanction, it's an administrative measure. It gets rid of the whole purpose of a standards committee that elected officials are looking into elected officials' complaints. Lastly, Mr. Mayor, it also mentions that there's been a big increase in members' complaints because of social media. It's simple. When we've got members making complaints against other members over social media, let's stop wasting everyone's time. We've heard time and time again tonight how busy we are, how stretched we are. But what we see, and it's not me, I've never had a standards complaint. What we're seeing here is council officers prolonging, sometimes for 6 months at a time, over a social media comment. So that's pretty much it. I'll just ask you quickly. I was going to speak on 24 on the COVID update. Have I come to that? Have we come to that?
We've passed that.
We've passed that. You probably have let me speak when you shouldn't. Then, so for that, I do thank you, and I'll let you carry on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll just repeat, Councillor. There's a further report on the standards later, sometime later in the year or next year, in which those questions should be raised. This one is purely about the audit.
Well, Mr. Mayor, in that case, you need to have them look at the agenda because I am only quoting the link on the actual.
That's why I've allowed you to speak.
Oh,
I'm just giving you a reason why you won't be getting an answer tonight.
Oh, it's okay. I didn't expect one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councillor Brealey, I understand you wish to speak on this item.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, about audit. I'm going to speak on audit, but please don't interrupt me when I start. Now, from the report, there's no budget figures. So how can we assess what's gone and what's not gone and whatever? I mean, we tried to contact the officer who's in back-to-back meetings, but yet the report doesn't give any figures again. Now, you know, I've been looking through the section, what he sent me, anything spent over £500, and the list is unbelievable. There's payments being made left, right and centre, but I'm not seeing any payments being made in the actual ward of what these council taxpayers pay. Approximately £5 million per ward. You know, we've been asking questions about investment in England Green. I followed the correct procedure last year, contacting an officer to have some funding available for Christmas decorations, following the correct procedure, and it didn't go nowhere. Now, I think that's gross misconduct by an officer. When you're following the procedure and they're not even bothered to contact the councillor on regarding £6,500. That's all it was, £6,500, to give the people of England Green a better respect of, you know, encouragement of give them something, bit of pleasure in these COVID-19 situation we're sitting in. And what gets me as well is the officer, where's he got the £1.25 million match funding from to give to one business in Wigan? One business, when the Mayor of Greater Manchester is hanging out for £5 million. Come on, we're talking money here.
Just interrupt you there.
Oh, come on, you're interrupting me again.
We're discussing the audit.
Yes, an audit is money. It's all about funding, public funding, Mr. Mayor. Don't try to juggle your words about that. Try to shut me up
Councillor
again.
Brealey for a moment, please. Councillor, I'm not going to keep muting you. When I start speaking, you're supposed to stop. Them's the rules. You must stick to the relevant part of the agenda.
Quite correct, Councillor.
The audit. Councillor Brealey, you are muted because I'm speaking. You don't speak when I speak.
Right, you're not speaking now, are you?
I'm not speaking. I'm waiting for you to stop speaking. All right, I'm just letting you know you have to stick to the relevant part of the agenda, which is audit.
The relevant part of the agenda is audit. I'm talking about figures. I'm talking about the powerhouse of Wigan. All the funding comes to audit. What's wrong with that? Do you not understand business?
I'm afraid I don't think you understand business. I think you're going to have to move on. Does any other members wish to speak?
Once again, you're doing it again.
Yeah, I am. Can you mute Councillor Brealey, please? Councillor Brealey, your comments have been noted and we'll deal with them another time. Can I ask
answers we want?
Could you mute Councillor Brealey, please? We're moving on. Can I ask Councillor Gerard to speak there, please?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. In the report, 3.8, well, section 3.8, it mentions about rent collections and business rates. So I'm just wondering now, as we move into this further stage of this pandemic, we're going to have businesses people laid off from jobs. I'm just wondering, is there going to be a bit of clear thinking over the collection of these rates and rent arrears or anything, rather than just going for the full hits and trying to, you know, evict people basically in the houses? I'm just a bit concerned about that. I think we need to be a bit more caring about it on these collections in these times.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. Any other members who wish to speak on this? No. Councillor Jones would like to raise a point of order. Councillor Jones.
Hi, Mr. Moore. It's a very quick one, this. I've just re-looked before I made an idiot of myself, and that clearly states that this was a report for audit, governance and standards. The point, I'm not going to try to speak about them again, but Councillor Gerard has just picked up on one of the points that I was actually told I couldn't speak on, which was about rent. So when we come to an item and it says item 7A, we click the link, we go through them reports. Next time, or if we're wrong, could somebody speak to us? Because next time I don't want to sit for a meeting for an hour, wait to raise these points and then be told we can't when we're following one link that's on the page that we've got from the council. So I'm going to leave it at there because I think you've done a good job tonight. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, it's just that Councillor Rigby at the start said his report will only cover audit and that the standards will be covered at a further report at another time.
With all due respect, Mr. Mayor, we're going off the title of the report, not what Councillor Rigby says tonight, to be fair.
Fair comment.
Well, I'll send you an email after meeting. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Halliwell would like to speak. Councillor Halliwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's appropriate just to mention that as a council, we are committed to supporting residents to pay their rent and maintain the tenancy and home. And to do that, we promote engagement, we maximise income and signposts to support and other benefits. We take into consideration personal and financial circumstances, providing those with payment issues significant time and chances to resolve, and carrying out multiple and varied contact attempts, including out of hours home visits, and agreeing to suspend evictions and accept payment arrangements set by the court. Mr. Mayor, this council provides every opportunity and provides every means possible to help people to maintain the rents, even if it means by direct payment if they're on UC. So, Mr. Mayor, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Halliwell. Councillor Gerard, you've already spoken on this once, so I can't bring you in again. Councillor Maiden, you wish to speak on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just going back to Councillor Halliwell there, it's all right having all these buzzwords and fancy slogans and DIY posters for Facebook. The amount of emails I get regarding people's council tax is horrendous at the minute. And you can't get hold of anybody. You can't get hold of anybody with an email. You can't get hold of an officer. So, Councillor Halliwell, maybe you want to look at your line of communication because at the minute it's absolutely horrendous. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Any other members? Councillor Raymond, because you seconded this motion, you have the right to speak. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just say that regarding collections, we suspended our collections for the first 3 months and we just restarted them in August. But as we are entering into a second wave, we remain committed to be compassionate with our residents and business owners. So if it needs be, we'll try to look for as much relief for our businesses and residents as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Rigby, do you now wish to sum up?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. What we're looking at with this report is how the audit committee had functioned in a set period of time. We weren't looking at individual items that might have been discussed. When we look through, we can see that some confusion could come about by members not attending the amount of times they should do, and they might have missed certain things. And the attendance records are in the report, Mr. Mayor. I'm quite happy for the report to stand on its own, and we could go to the vote now.
Right, can I now put the report to the vote? Can all those against the approval of the report please show in the chat facility? I have 3 against the report: Councillor Maiden, Councillor Jones and Councillor Brealey. That report has been accepted. Questions and comments. Councillor Winstanley wishes to ask a question on minute 10 of the Children and Young People's Scrutiny Committee, 25th of August 2020, Ofsted Focus Visit, January 2020. Councillor Winstanley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And having gone through every single minute and report, I'm fairly sure I know which one I'm talking about. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will also abide by your timescales as well. And I think you've been extremely good in terms of keeping those tonight. So could the portfolio holder update the council on the progress made since the focus visit in January, and which other areas are still of concern, and what action is being undertaken to address these urgently? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I invite Councillor Jenny Bullen to respond if she wishes. Councillor Bullen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, colleagues. I'm happy to respond to Councillor Winstanley's question. Since the Ofsted Focus visit in January 2020, we've made substantial changes to leadership in Children's Services Directorate. Colette Dutton joined the Council as Director in July, providing stability and executive leadership to the Directorate. The Director of Practice role, currently being undertaken on an interim basis, will be filled permanently by Sandy Hayes in the new year. Mike Chu, our Director for Community Services Startwell, has taken on commissioning and placement sufficiency. I spoke at full council in August about the priorities for the Directorate. These continue to be our key areas of focus. But in addition, we're focusing on performance. Performance is a key theme for the Directorate, so that we know ourselves and are in a strong position to effect change and improve service delivery. The improvements that have been identified through Ofsted often have complex root causes and involve working together with our partners effectively. We know that a wholesale change in our culture and practice is needed to achieve the necessary improvements. Colette, our new DCS, has implemented significant changes to address immediate concerns in the short term, and I will highlight some of them now as time allows, Mr. Mayor. A comprehensive self-assessment has been undertaken to ensure that we have a realistic view of the quality of children's social care in Wigan. A robust plan of transformation has been created to address the improvements that are required, but also to celebrate areas, and there are many, where we are delivering good services to our children and families. In line with our Wigan deal, Colette has been interacting with staff to ensure that morale is supported and that staff feel listened to and heard. A workforce strategy has been developed to support staff through a significant period of change and to ensure that they feel part of planning services for the future. We now have a quality and performance board. We're calling it our Wigan's Deal for Children. This board will drive change and offer robust challenge to the partnership to deliver consistently good services. We have also established a children's safeguarding executive to improve governance across the partnership in Wigan. The Local Governance Association, the LGA, have been commissioned to work with us. They've completed a review to benchmark the quality of our social work practice and partnership working. They've also planned some training for our corporate parenting board to ensure that we are using our assets in the best way. In March 21, they'll do some diagnostic work on our front door. That's where referrals come in. We need to be sure that we receive work about the right children and young people at the right time and make the right response. With reference to finance, a wider piece of work has been undertaken with the Director of Finance regarding the investment needed in social workers and in the sufficiency of placements. Linked to this, a business delivery board has been established with the required reporting mechanisms to plan and track spend. Furthermore, a digital services and systems board is now in place to record, collate and analyse the quality of service delivery. Mr. Mayor, these are the significant highlights. Finally, I would just like to mention that an Ofsted Assurance visit took place earlier this month as part of Ofsted's latest round of inspection themes. The visit had a predominant focus on COVID to understand the quality of our decision making for children across the partnership during the pandemic period. A draft letter will be received on the 23rd of October, with the final version published on the 20th of November. Following the publication of this letter, consideration will be given to reporting the improvement journey for children's social care and the associated plan to Cabinet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mullen. Councillor Winstanley wishes to make a comment on minute 21, Cabinet, 27th of August 2020, GM Clean Air Plan consultation. Councillor Winstanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and can I thank you, and can I thank Councillor Bullen for a comprehensive answer to my question previously. I will be quick on this one on the congestion shared zone. Members will not be surprised. I'm not in favour of it. I don't like it. I don't like the GM approach to it. However, can I say that the video that's been produced as a training mechanism for members is extremely good and is really well informed. So I would urge all members to look at that. But we've heard already tonight from the leader, deputy leader and other cabinet members in terms of the pressure that we're facing now in terms of as we move into this second wave and we move into tier 3. So I do wonder about whether we should carry on with this consultation, given the fact that the businesses and the people that are going to be most impacted by this congestion zone should now have more time to actually respond to this, given where we're going to actually go in terms of this. So I would ask for a pause, a rethink and go back to the drawing board. And I appreciate it's not necessarily within the gift of this council because it's a GM zone, but I would like that to be formally noted and passed back to the relevant authorities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can I invite Councillor Paul Prescott to respond to that if he so wishes?
I do wish, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you may be aware that the government very recently removed the direction for the implementation of a charging clean air zone in Leeds city centre. The reason for doing so is that because of the large-scale uptake of compliant vehicles in the bus and private hire taxi sectors and among the HGV operators, the city had in fact achieved its aim of removing all exceedances within the planned clean air zone, which is therefore no longer required. However, it is important to point out that there are some very important differences between our position in Greater Manchester and that of Leeds, and that the legal requirements on us have not changed in any way, shape or form. We are still required by government to have a scheme in place to achieve compliance with clean air standards by 2022, and it remains our view that we cannot achieve that without the introduction of a clean air zone. It is the case that businesses in Leeds have received an access to significant subsidies to support the transition to clean air compliant vehicles. As a result of that, the city being in the first wave since early 2019. In addition, it is important to remember that Leeds have only acknowledged that they intend to address the problem of clean air in the heart of the city and not across the conurbation. The current consultation is a district exercise, but the clear advice that we've received that it should be completed as planned. The opportunity for review of any aspect of our proposed strategy is and should be at that point. Now, I understand that TFGM have taken legal advice on this matter, and that the advice was on balance to proceed with the consultation. I also understand that if there is any impact from COVID in those areas, that we may have the option to extend that consultation period. I hope that answers the councillor's question.
Right. Thank you for that, Councillor Prescott. Councillor Winstanley wishes to make a second comment on minute 27, Cabinet, 24th of September, Community Wealth Building Vision and Principles. Councillor Winstanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sure members will be relieved to know that this is my last intervention tonight. So, in terms of the report that went to Cabinet on the community wealth building principles, and I know the Deputy Leader can't wait to respond to me on this. Can I firstly say that I'm not opposed in any way, shape or form to moving more money into the public sector being spent with local Wigan firms and increasing the number of businesses locally here in Wigan that the council does business with, providing it's an open, transparent and fair process. I also want to drive up skills and wages. I don't think anyone in this council wants to do anything else. I want everyone to benefit from an increase in wages and an increase in skills. I think the whole community will do better from that. However, I do have some concerns about the authors of the report, the Centre for Local Economic Strategies. I didn't know much about this group until I started to do some research. And then when I found the website, I found that the trustees are all ram-packed with Labour councillors, and all these people have all worked in local Labour authorities. So I wanted to see some different thinking. I wanted to see some entrepreneurial thinking. I wanted to see some, go-getters from the private sector. But I didn't really get that from the trustees of this group. And then I looked at some of the key principles: plural ownership of the economy, making financial power work for places, progressive procurement of goods and services, socially productive use of land and property. I think the only thing I was missing was the regulation of tractor production across the piece. It did sound very much like a general election pamphlet from the very successful 2019 campaign from the Labour Party. I was also concerned about their opinion on making financial power work for local places, increase the flow of investment with local economies by harnessing and recirculating wealth that exists as opposed to attracting capital. Well, if we want to grow Wigan and we want economic growth, we need to invest and attract capital from outside. That is absolutely important to do that. And I did notice that they don't shun all capitalist activities, seeing as they've had a contract for about 20,000 with the council. So they obviously got some principles in there that they do adhere to. So then I thought, don't be so hard on it. It might not all be pseudo-Marxist stuff. So I googled Preston, and there it was. It confirmed what I knew in my heart of hearts. It said the UK's most improved city became a success for Corbyn economics, and my heart sank. So for me, it's no new thinking. It's been praised by John McDonnell. Well, that's all the endorsement that I need to know how this works. This strategy was due to be launched before the pandemic, and what I'm concerned about is it might not now meet the transformational change that we need post-pandemic. And I know we're in the second wave, but post, when we come through this, for our economic recovery, we'll need to engage with private business, entrepreneurs, as we turbocharge Wigan's economic recovery. It can't be done by cooperatives and social enterprises alone. If we are going to need to be bold and ambitious, if we're going to attract high quality businesses with capital to drive up wages and jobs. The most disappointing thing about the report was the quote at the end. And when you receive one of these reports, it's normally the call to action. It was this is what's going to make me sort of like do this. The quote was, and I hope all members have read this, if you wish to build a ship, do not divide people into teams and send them into the forest to cut the wood. Instead, teach them to long for the vast and endless sea. Well, quite frankly, if I'm going to build a boat and I'm going to go on a journey, I'm going to get the wood because I want to build a ship. And then I'm going to go on my expansive journey and conquer new horizons and bring trade, because that's what we need to do. We need to build a Wigan ship, sail on that ocean of economic recovery and drive up prosperity in Wigan with better skills and better jobs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, well, thank you for that, Councillor Winstanley. I would like to invite Councillor Keith Cunliffe to respond if he wishes. Councillor Cunliffe.
Get that Shepherd's Crook ready, because this is actually, I need a 3-hour discussion with Councillor Winstanley, which if he emails me, I'm quite happy to set up. But in reality, what he's talking about, and some of what he says is what we're trying to do, but obviously it's upset Councillor Winstanley because there are a number of Labour Party supporters, because it is very much about giving power to communities. And of course, the Tories don't like giving power to communities, they like centralising power. And if we think about Wigan as a borough, it used to be a very industrial coal mining area with plenty of wealth and assets within the borough. Of course, the Tory government shut the coal mines. They didn't provide us with the opportunities to retrain, to reskill, to develop new business. And in fact, the Tories now sort of have a gig economy, 0 hours contracts, low wages, to such an extent that 1/3 of the borough jobs in Wigan pay below the real living wage. Lee is the worst in England for social mobility in early years. And so when we were talking about looking to develop community wealth building in March, that was before the lockdown, we were talking about using some of the experience that Preston have had. So whilst Councillor Winstanley talks about curbing economics, let's look at the reality of what's been achieved. Preston, which it's a district council, it's not a unitary authority like us, has generated an extra £74 million being spent in that borough. That £74 million is jobs and employment for people producing goods and services in that borough, and it's created an impact of an additional £450 million being spent within just a close area in the sub-region. So actually, it's done a lot. It has moved some areas out of levels of deprivation. And when you look at Wigan, our numbers of areas in deprivation are increasing. The DWP has indicated that there are 14,655 newly unemployed people in our borough, 2,800 of them young people. And we're in danger as a result of this pandemic of having a lost generation of young people. So it is really important that we look at this, bringing in CLES, using their experience, because whilst we were intending in March for this to be a long-term programme, the actual need for it has become even more important because of COVID. And so we need to accelerate the system, and that's why they were brought in, to bring in their expertise and to accelerate our process. We have anchor institutions, the council, Wrightington, Wigan and Lee NHS Trust, Wigan and Lee College, schools, Greater Manchester Police, the CCG and voluntary sector partner and businesses are all enthused by the opportunity to actually change our direction and focus of travel. And really what we can do is make a significant difference. Even the council alone, If we spent 10% more of our spend on goods and services within the borough, we would generate £30 million additional. That is £30 million of jobs, employment and opportunities. But it's not just about buying local or spending local. Think if all of us across those public sector organisations did that. Councillor Winstanley talks about mutuals, cooperatives, social enterprise, and we need to encourage those. Obviously, major employers, we want to attract capital in, but actually there's an issue about major capital investment by companies, because we're not going to provide everything in Wigan on a social enterprise basis. We're going to need major companies, obviously, and we want them to invest and we want them to bring capital in, because actually they bring jobs, high quality jobs and high levels of pay, and we need to attract that. But there's an issue about what do we ask them to contribute to the community, and there's a lot we can do. So there's issues around the way we procure, the way we contract, the way we deal with businesses, and to enter into a more partnership approach around making sure that this borough increases its wealth and it's shared across the people of the borough. Is that the Shepherd's Crook?
Yes.
I will of course look forward to Councillor Winstanley's response when he wants a 3-hour lecture on it.
Fortunately, I can't ask any other councillors to speak on this. That matter's finished. There are no notices of motion this meeting. Can I just end by saying, when the rules are, when the mayor speaks, everyone else must stop speaking. That means I can interrupt whoever I want. No one has the right to interrupt me. Try and respect that, some of you, please. It will make the meeting go along a lot smoother. Thank you, and that concludes all the business for tonight.